Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. In 1795, the 60th year of Emperor Qianlong's reign, a major event took place in the Forbidden City. Although already 85 years old, the Qianlong emperor remained in relatively good health and high spirits. He decided to hold another palace selection to choose a new group of young women to enter the imperial harem. This decision puzzled many. Why would an 85-year-old ruler devote such effort to selecting concubines? What deeper meaning lay behind it? And how many women's fates would be changed by this single event? The Qing dynasty's palace selection system was a hallmark of feudal society. It was not only for choosing imperial consorts but also for preserving the bloodline and authority of the royal house and serving as a tool for political alliances. Qianlong ruled for 60 years and, after formally abdicating, continued to exercise supreme authority for another 3 years. In total, he effectively controlled the empire for 63 years and 4 months, making him both the longest reigning and the longest-lived emperor in Chinese history. Palace elections were nothing new to him. But this one was extraordinary. It was the last large-scale harem selection of his life. The event lasted 5 days, from preliminary screening to final selection, with thousands of candidates participating. In the end, only 8 women stood out from the thousands of contenders and successfully entered the palace. The level of competition was as fierce as thousands of troops fighting to cross a single-plank bridge. Who were these fortunate ones, and what became of them? According to historical records, the selection officially began in early February 1795. Young women from across the empire traveled long distances to Beijing, carrying their families' hopes, to await the emperor's inspection. The process was divided into 2 stages, preliminary and final selection. During the preliminary stage, the emperor personally chose a small number from thousands of candidates each day. The women were grouped by age, 6 to a row, and, led by chief eunuchs, slowly walked before the emperor for inspection. Picture the scene, in the great halls of the Forbidden City. Rows of young women dressed in elegant finery, heads lowered, holding their breath as they awaited their fate. While the 85-year-old emperor sat high on his dragon throne, his gaze sweeping across youthful faces. Each day he reviewed more than 2,000 candidates, giving each woman less than a second to make an impression. Even modern talent shows could hardly match such speed. After 4 days of screening, Qianlong reduced the thousands of candidates to just 13 for the final round on the 5th day. The competition then grew even fiercer, and only 8 women ultimately succeeded, giving them an admission rate of less than 1 in 1,000. What does this harsh selection reveal? It highlights the uncertainty of women's destinies in ancient times and the strict demands of feudal society. Candidates had to be not only graceful and beautiful but also well-versed in etiquette, skilled in needlework, and sometimes proficient in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Family background mattered even more. The higher the status, the better the chances of selection. For the emperor, palace elections were not merely beauty contests but political instruments. By admitting these women into the imperial household or marrying them off to imperial princes, he strengthened royal power and secured alliances with influential clans. Behind every candidate stood a family burdened with high expectations. Entering the palace was not only personal glory but also a family's great opportunity. If chosen by the emperor or married into the imperial clan, their status and wealth would soar. But failure could bring bitter disappointment and even affect future marriage prospects. Thus, every candidate carried the hopes and pressures of her entire family. As for the 8 fortunate women who were finally selected, who were they, and what were their origins? Sadly, historical records provide little detail, and their names and exact backgrounds remain unknown. What is certain is that to stand out among thousands of candidates, these young women were far from ordinary. Most came from prominent families, noble households of the 8 banners. Whether Manchu, Mongol, or Han banner aristocracy. In appearance, bearing, and learning, they had to meet exceptionally high standards. As for their ultimate fates, we can only make reasonable inferences based on the circumstances of the time and Qing dynasty custom. Even these educated guesses reveal much about the joy and sorrow of women living under the shadow of imperial power. First, most of these 8 women were likely granted in marriage by Qianlong to close imperial kinsmen, for example, to his grandson Mining, the future Daoguang emperor. For these women, marrying into the imperial clan was considered an honor, bringing wealth, privilege, and titles such as consort of a prince or consort of a commandery prince. But was life in the royal family truly so enviable? Not necessarily. Inside the imperial clan, power struggles and personal rivalries ran deep. These young brides might face indifference from their husbands, conflict with sisters-in-law, or disputes among powerful relatives. Their marriages were rarely based on affection, they were political arrangements. To marry into the imperial house might appear glorious, but in reality it could be an all-or-nothing gamble with no way out. Second, though Qianlong was already 85, his temperament and preferences make it possible that some of the chosen women were taken into his own harem and given low-ranking titles such as Guiran, noble lady, or Kangxi, attendant. Yet, because of his advanced age, these new concubines would likely have held little real influence. Life in the imperial harem was never easy. It was already full of long-established consorts who held firm positions, leaving newcomers little chance to rise. These women would have had to navigate intrigue and jealousy with extreme caution, while enduring the emperor's shifting moods. Moreover, as Qianlong's health declined, any favor these young concubines enjoyed would have been fleeting, perhaps purely ceremonial. Their lives, which outwardly glittered with privilege, may in truth have been marked by helplessness and loneliness. There is also another possibility, among these 8 young women. Some who had neither been married off nor granted concubine titles under Qianlong may have been transferred into Emperor Jiaqing's harem after Qianlong's abdication. Shortly after the 1795 selection, Qianlong ceded the throne in 1796 to his son, Emperor Jiaqing. Unlike his elderly father, Jiaqing was in his prime and might have been more attentive to the management of his harem and to showing favor to its members, perhaps offering these young women a better opportunity. Yet even under such circumstances, life within the imperial harem remained full of challenges. Speaking of the fates of palace women, there is one exceptional case worth noting, that of Consort Jean. Though she was not one of the women chosen in the 1795 selection, she was a 13-year-old girl selected in 1798, when Qianlong was already 88 years old. Her story is deeply poignant. Entering the palace at such a young age, she became one of Qianlong's concubines, but the emperor favored her for barely a year before his death. After losing imperial protection, Consort Jin's status plummeted. With no children and no powerful family to support her, she endured cold neglect in the palace. After Qianlong's death, she was sent to live in Shokang Palace among the elder consorts, spending her days as a widow in the harem. She lived through the reigns of Qianlong, Jiaqing, and Daoguang, but died of illness in 1822, the second year of Emperor Daoguang's reign. At only 40 years of age. Consort Jin's fate reflects the tragic destiny of countless palace women. According to historians, her story also casts a shadow of worry and sympathy over the young women chosen in the 1795 selection. What appeared to be an imperial beauty contest was in reality a complex political maneuver. By that time, Qianlong had ruled for 60 years and, at age 85, still wielded supreme power. His reign seemed stable, but the struggle for power within the royal clan never ceased. Through this selection, Qianlong not only brought promising bloodlines into the imperial family but also used imperial marriages to strengthen alliances with 8 banner nobles and reinforce his authority. For the candidates' families, too, the selection was a high-stakes gamble. If their daughters were chosen, the family status could soar overnight; if not, their hopes could be dashed completely. This system, ostensibly serving the imperial household, in reality drew countless families and young women into a war without gunpowder or smoke. Today, the stories of these candidates may have been buried under the dust of history. But their fates remind us of the need to strive for a society that is fairer and more just. This is the History and Culture channel. Liking and subscribing are the greatest help and support to us. Thank you everyone and see you in the next time.